The crimson sandstorms of Xylos clawed at the mangled hull of the freighter, a furious, grinding welcome to a world where survival itself felt like a rapidly fading dream, especially for two souls already bound by the parasitic lullaby of the Sleep Inducer Sprout. Inside the fractured cockpit of the Wanderlust, Jax, a human pilot whose unassuming demeanor belayed a core of resilient steel, coughed, the gritty air stinging his lungs. His eyes, heavy with an unnatural, bone-deep wariness, struggled to focus on the alien landscape visible through a cracked viewport, a panorama of rust-colored dunes under a bruised purple sky, where lightning, thick as tree trunks, danced with malevolent glee. He wasn't alone. A few feet away, slumped against a flickering console, was the Cathar. Her name, he'd later learn, was Lyra'Vael. For now, she was just the other survivor, an imposing figure even in her apparent unconsciousness. Her skin was a mosaic of obsidian and deep violet, her features sharp, almost predatory, yet possessing an undeniable strange grace. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through her limbs, a subtle sign of life that did little to ease the tension coiling in Jax's gut. He remembered the impact, the screech of tearing metal, and then nothing. An abrupt, irresistible plunge into slumber, as if a switch had been flipped in his brain. He'd woken moments ago, feeling like he'd run a marathon in his sleep, his mind a chaotic swirl of disjointed, exhausting dream fragments he couldn't quite grasp. He pushed himself up, his muscles screaming in protest. The ship was a wreck, systems dead or dying. Escape pods were a distant memory, likely vaporized on entry. Xylos, he'd heard whispers of this planet on the galactic fringes, quarantined, inhospitable, prone to atmospheric anomalies that tore ships apart. Now he was living the cautionary tale. His gaze fell on a delicate, pale green tendril, no thicker than a wire, snaking out from a tear in his flight suit near his wrist. It pulsed faintly. He'd seen another on the Cathar, near her temple, almost hidden by the intricate braiding of her dark, bioluminescent hair. The Sleep Inducer Sprout. He'd read about it in some obscure quarantine report, a symbiote, or parasite depending on your luck, native to a handful of blighted worlds. It latched onto a host, guaranteeing instant sleep in any environment, a supposed survival mechanism for long, perilous journeys or extreme stress. The catch, the dreams. Vivid, relentless, and utterly draining. Cooperation for survival, the report had said, was key for infected individuals. Two minds fighting the dream exhaustion were better than one succumbing alone. Lyra'Vael stirred, a low groan escaping her lips. Her eyes, the color of molten gold, snapped open, instantly alert, fixing on him. There was no fear in them, only a keen, analytical assessment. She moved with a fluid power that belied the crash, her body uncoiling like a predator. Her gaze flicked to the sprout on her own skin, then to his. A silent understanding passed between them, an acknowledgement of their shared, unwelcome passenger. The sprout, she said, her voice a low, resonant contralto, the human standard surprisingly clear, though tinged with an alien cadence. We are partnered. Jax nodded, grimacing. Looks like it. Name's Jax. And you? Lyra'Vael of Cathar, she replied, her golden eyes unwavering. This vessel, it will not fly again. No kidding? Jax muttered, surveying the catastrophic damage. Any idea where we are, other than deep trouble? Lyra'Vael rose, her height surprising him. She was a good head taller than him. She moved to the cracked viewport, her gaze sweeping the desolate landscape. Xylos. My people have records of this world. It is not a place for the living to linger. Her hand, elegant and strong with long fingers, rested on a small, intricately carved satchel at her hip. It seemed to radiate a faint warmth, a subtle thrum he could almost feel even from a distance. Something precious, he guessed. Something worth surviving for. Suddenly, an immense wave of drowsiness washed over Jax. He fought it, his eyelids feeling like lead weights. Oh no, not again. Lyra'Vael swayed, her hand going to her temple where the sprout was rooted. The cycle it is beginning. He saw her eyes lose focus, her body slump. He reached out, a futile gesture, as the world dissolved around him, replaced by an irresistible, crushing blackness. Sleep claimed him instantly, and with it, the exhausting, bewildering theater of dreams. He was running, endlessly running, through corridors made of shifting light and shadow. Whispers echoed, formless anxieties given voice. He saw Lyra'Vael in the dream, a fleeting image of her standing on a precipice, the wind whipping her dark hair, the satchel at her hip glowing with an intense, sorrowful light. Then the dream shifted, became a chaotic kaleidoscope of falling stars and dying suns. He woke with a gasp, heart hammering, drenched in sweat. It felt like hours had passed, but the bruised purple sky outside the viewport was unchanged. Lyra'Vael was already awake, her expression grim. She was examining a data crystal, salvaged from a mostly intact console. The Sprout's cycles are short, she stated without preamble. And the dreams, they consume energy. We must find shelter, water, and a way to manage this affliction before it incapacitates us completely. Manage how? Jax asked, his voice hoarse. The report said there's no quick cure. The reports are often incomplete, Lyra'Vael said, her gaze distant. Cathar knowledge speaks of certain rhythms, certain mental disciplines that can mitigate the drain. But it requires focus, something difficult to achieve when reality itself is constantly interrupted. He noticed then the fine tremors in her hands. Even her formidable Cathar physiology was being taxed. Right, shelter first. He looked around the cockpit. Anything salvageable? Emergency beacon. Lyra'Vael shook her head. The impact shattered the primary systems. The secondary beacon is likely a molten lump. We are on our own. Story of my life. Jax muttered, more to himself than to her. He was a renegade pilot after all. Used to being on his own. But this felt different. The Sprout made him vulnerable in a way he'd never experienced. And this alien, Lyra'Vael, she was an unknown variable. Strong, certainly, but trustworthy. As if sensing his thoughts, Lyra'Vael turned to him, her golden eyes piercing. We share this Sprout, human. Our survival is now intertwined. My instincts tell me you are resourceful. My people value resourcefulness. Unassuming is the word most use. Jax corrected, a wry smile touching his lips. But I get by. What about your instincts now? Which way to not die? Lyra'Vael tilted her head, listening not just with her ears, but seemingly with her entire being. The wind howled outside, carrying with it the grinding sound of sand and something else, a faint, rhythmic thrumming, almost too low to hear. There, she said, pointing towards a jagged mountain range silhouetted against the turbulent sky. There is a resonance. A cave system, perhaps. Shelter from the storms, and maybe something more. Before Jax could question her, the drowsiness hit again, a tidal wave of exhaustion. He saw Lyra'Vael's form waver, her eyes glaze over. He fought, tried to brace himself, but it was useless. Darkness, and the dreams. This time he dreamt of a vast empty void, and a single, glowing seed falling endlessly. He felt an overwhelming sense of loss, of a universe mourning. When he woke, it was to Lyra'Vael gently shaking his shoulder. Her touch was surprisingly light. The storm worsens, she said, her voice urgent. We must move, now. The air outside the wreck was a maelstrom. Crimson sand stung his exposed skin like 1,000 tiny needles. The wind shrieked, threatening to tear them from their feet. Jax pulled his tattered flight jacket tighter, Lyra'Vael already moving with an incredible, low-slung grace that seemed to defy the gale. He followed her, trusting her strange resonance sense. They stumbled through the howling wasteland, the landscape a disorienting blur of red and purple. Each waking period was a frantic burst of activity, followed by the inevitable, crushing sleep and its attendant dream terrors. During one brief waking interlude, huddled behind a rock outcropping as lightning split the sky, Lyra'Vael spoke, her voice strained. The dreams, they are not just random figments. The Sprout, it connects to something, a deeper current. Feels more like it's trying to scramble my brains, Jax grumbled, rubbing his temples. Perhaps for you, she conceded. For me, I see echoes. Memories that are not my own, and futures tangled, uncertain. She clutched the satchel at her hip. The Solis Arbor, it calls to me, even in the dreamscapes. Solis Arbor, a world seed. She explained, her voice barely a whisper above the wind. All that remains of my homeworld. Cathar Prime was consumed. This seed is its legacy. A chance for new life somewhere someday. Her eyes held a profound sadness, a weight that Jax, for all his renegade cynicism, found himself respecting. This wasn't just a survivor, this was the last hope of a dead planet. It explained the quiet intensity, the fierce determination. Another wave of sleep began to pull at him. Lyra, he slurred, using the shortened version of her name without thinking. Those futures. Any of them involve us getting off this rock. Her eyes, already misting with the Sprout's influence, met his. A flicker of something unreadable passed through them before she succumbed. Jax fell into the darkness beside her, the image of the glowing Solis Arbor imprinted on his mind. His dream was of a garden, impossibly vibrant, growing from barren rock. They trekked for what felt like days, measured in cycles of waking and dreaming. The landscape grew more treacherous, canyons and rockfalls. Jax's piloting skills, honed by navigating asteroid fields and evading patrols, translated into a surprising agility on the ground. But Lyra'Vael moved with an almost supernatural surety. Her Cathar physiology was clearly superior in this harsh environment. She seemed to anticipate unstable ground, to find paths where he saw only impassable barriers. During one waking period, they were scrambling up a steep incline when the ground beneath Jax's feet gave way. He yelped, scrabbling for purchase as he began to slide towards a deep crevice. Before he could fall far, a strong hand clamped onto his arm, arresting his descent. Lyra'Vael, braced against the crumbling rock face, held him fast, her muscles taut. The G-forces she could tolerate were legendary, and he felt that immense strength now. "Hold," she commanded, her voice strained but firm. He looked up into her golden eyes, inches from his. There was no panic, only focused effort. With a grunt, she hauled him upwards, her strength astonishing. He scrambled back onto more solid ground, breathing heavily. "Thanks," he gasped. "Oh, you won." Lyra'Vael merely nodded, already scanning their surroundings. "The Sprout weakens us. We must be more cautious." It was in that moment, seeing her raw power used to save him, that the first crack appeared in Jax's carefully constructed, emotional defenses. This alien wasn't just a fellow victim, she was a formidable ally. Later, while resting in a shallow cave, shielded from the worst of a passing acid rain squall, Jax noticed a deep gash on Lyra'Vael's arm, sustained during his rescue. It was oozing a dark, viscous fluid. "You're hurt," he said, concerned. She glanced at it. "A minor injury." "Doesn't look minor." He fumbled in his depleted mech-kit. "I have some back-to-patches, but..." Lyra'Vael held up a hand. "Cathar healing is different." She looked at the wound, then, to Jax's astonishment, she brought her other hand to her eye. A single, crystalline tear formed, shimmering with an inner light. She caught it on her fingertip and carefully applied it to the gash. The flesh around the wound seemed to sizzle for a moment, then the bleeding slowed, the edges of the cut visibly knitting together. Jax stared, dumbfounded. "Your tears, they heal. Some wounds." She confirmed, her expression unreadable. "It is a complex biological process. Our saliva, conversely, can be toxic to other species if certain glands are activated." "Good to know," Jax said, making a mental note. "Cathar tears good, Cathar spit, probably bad." The universe never ceased to amaze. Their forced proximity, the constant shared threat of the Sprout, and the hostile planet, was forging an undeniable, if unspoken bond. They learned each other's rhythms, the telltale signs of approaching sleep. They shared meager rations scavenged from the wreck, and later strange, bioluminescent fungi Lyra'Vael identified as edible. The dreams continued, exhausting and surreal. Sometimes, Jax felt Lyra'Vael's presence in his dreams, a fleeting sense of shared consciousness, a consequence, perhaps, of the Sprout and her nascent nexus abilities. The turning point came as they neared the mountain range Lyra'Vael had indicated. They were traversing a narrow pass when Lyra'Vael suddenly stopped, her head cocked, her body tensing. "What is it?" Jax whispered, hand instinctively going to the worn blaster pistol at his hip, one of the few useful things he'd salvaged. "Silence," she commanded, her golden eyes narrowed, scanning not the visible terrain, but something beyond it. Her pupils dilated, then contracted, as if focusing on an invisible spectrum. A low hum, almost a vibration, emanated from her. There is a distortion. A ripple in the normal flow of this place. Not natural. Jax strained his senses. He saw only rock and wind-whipped sand. He heard only the howl of the storm. "I don't see anything." "Humans are sensorily limited in some frequencies," she said, a hint of her alien perspective showing. "This is subtle. Deliberate. A cloaked presence." Suddenly, a section of the rock face shimmered, like heat haze, and two figures materialized. They were tall, slender, clad in obsidian armor that seemed to drink the light. Their faces were hidden behind impassive insectoid masks. They raised sophisticated energy rifles. Cathar, fugitive Lyra'Vael. One of them intuned, its voice a synthesized monotone, and the human anomaly. "You are designated for containment. Resistance is futile." Jax cursed. "Fugitive? Anomaly? Who the hell are these guys? Aethelgardians?" Lyra'Vael hissed, her hand protectively covering the Solis Arbor satchel. "Manipulators. Weavers of discord. They must not have the seed." Before Jax could react, Lyra'Vael moved. She didn't run, she flowed, a blur of motion. She launched herself at the nearest Aethelgardian, her Cathar agility and G-force tolerance making her incredibly fast. The Aethelgardian fired, but Lyra'Vael twisted in midair, the energy bolt searing the rock where she'd been a split second before. She slammed into the Aethelgardian, a sharp crack echoing as her elbow connected with its masked face. The being stumbled back, momentarily stunned. Jax, recovering from his surprise, opened fire with his blaster. His shot sparked harmlessly off their armor. Great energy shields. The second Aethelgardian leveled its rifle at him. Jax dived for cover as a volley of energy bolts slammed into the rock behind him. Lyra'Vael, having dispatched the first Aethelgardian with a precise, disabling blow to a joint in its armor, whirled to face the second. But the Aethelgardians were clearly more than just enforcers. They moved with cold, calculated efficiency. The second one sidestepped Lyra'Vael's lunge, its rifle tracking her. It was Lyra'Vael's unique sensory perception that saved them again. Jax, the ground beneath its left foot, it's unstable, she yelled even as she dodged another blast. Jax, peeking from behind his cover, saw nothing unusual. But he trusted her. He fired a desperate, unaimed shot at the spot she'd indicated. The bolt struck the packed earth, and with a groan, a small section of the cliff edge, weakened by the constant storms and unseen fissures, collapsed. The Aethelgardian, caught off balance, cried out a surprisingly human sound of surprise and tumbled into the chasm below, its synthesized screams swallowed by the wind. The first Aethelgardian, recovering, raised its weapon again. But before it could fire, Lyra'Vael was on it. This time she didn't hold back. A guttural cry ripped from her throat, and her hand, fingers stiffened, struck a precise point on its neck. The Aethelgardian stiffened, then crumpled, its systems apparently shorted out. Silence descended, broken only by the wind. Jax slowly got to his feet, his heart pounding. Aethelgardians. What do they want with you? And what did they mean, human anomaly? Lyra'Vael was breathing heavily, the fight having taken its toll despite her prowess. The Aethelgardians, they are ancient. They see themselves as sculptors of galactic destiny. They abhor chaos, unless it is of their own making. The Solis Arbor represents uncontrolled creation, a new beginning they cannot dictate. And you? She looked at him, a new intensity in her golden eyes. I do not know why they called you an anomaly. But your presence here with me is clearly something they did not anticipate. She walked over to the downed Aethelgardian. Her expression was solemn. They are not truly alive, not in the way we understand it. More like sophisticated constructs animated by a distant will. She hesitated, then placed her hand on the Aethelgardian's helmet. Her eyes closed. Jax watched, puzzled, as a faint shimmer of light passed from the construct into her. When she opened her eyes, they seemed older, burdened. Their death, if it can be called that, allows me to absorb residual data, surface thoughts. It is a Cathar custom to understand the fallen, even enemies. What did you see? Jax asked, a knot of apprehension tightening in his stomach. They were tracking the Solis Arbor, yes. Lyra'Vael said slowly. But there's more. They spoke of a Continuum Shard hidden on this planet, an artifact of immense power, capable of bending reality. They believe it is key to initiating a grand design. Her eyes widened slightly. A false flag. They intend to use this shard to simulate an unprovoked Cathar attack on a human colony. To ignite a war between our peoples. Jax felt a chill run down his spine. A war between humans and the Cathar. The Cathar were formidable, technologically advanced, and culturally distinct. Such a conflict would be catastrophic. What do they gain? Amusement, perhaps, Lyra'Vael said, her voice laced with bitterness. Or they believe such a conflict is necessary for some grander, twisted purpose. The Aethelgardians operate on timelines and motivations beyond our comprehension. But their methods are always deceit and manipulation. She looked at him, her gaze direct. This changes things. It is no longer just about our survival, or even the Solis Arbor. We must find this Continuum Shard before they do. And we must stop their plan. The Sprout chose that moment to assert its dominance. The familiar wave of lethargy crashed over them. Jax fought it, but it was like trying to hold back the tide. Not now, he mumbled. Lyra'Vael swayed, her hand going to her satchel, as if to draw strength from the world seed within. The dreams, perhaps the answers lie there. Now that I know what to look for, they collapsed side by side, amongst the rocks and the fallen Aethelgardian, the wind howling their shared, parasitic lullaby. This time, Jax's dream was clearer, less chaotic. He saw Lyra'Vael, not as a distant figure, but beside him, her hand in his, navigating a landscape made of starlight and shadow. He felt her fear, her determination, her sorrow for her lost world, and a burgeoning, fierce protectiveness towards him. And for the first time, the dream didn't feel entirely exhausting. It felt shared. Waking felt like surfacing from a deep ocean. Lyra'Vael was already stirring, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The shard," she murmured, her voice rough. "I saw it in the dream. It's close. Deep within these mountains. And the Aethelgardians, they know we survived. More will come." They pushed on, deeper into the jagged peaks, the urgency a palpable force. The terrain became a labyrinth of narrow canyons and treacherous ascents. Jax found himself relying more and more on Lyra'Vael's instincts, her uncanny ability to sense the safest path, to anticipate rockfalls, to find hidden springs of water. He, in turn, used his technical knowledge to bypass ancient, failing security systems they encountered in what appeared to be millennia-old ruins, embedded within the mountains, remnants of a civilization long gone. A civilization that had perhaps also dealt with the Aethelgardians and their Continuum Shard. During one forced rest, huddled in a small alcove as another acid sleet storm raged outside, Jax found himself watching Lyra'Vael. She was tending to a small, hardy plant she'd found, coaxing it to life with a few drops of precious water. There was a gentleness in her actions that contrasted sharply with the warrior he'd seen fight the Aethelgardians. "You really believe that seed can bring back your world?" he asked softly. Lyra'Vael looked up, her golden eyes reflecting the faint light filtering into their shelter. "Not my world as it was. That is gone forever. Cathar Prime lives on only in the memories I carry." She touched her temple. "When a Cathar dies, those close to them can choose to perform the rite of passing. We absorb their essence, their strongest memories, their knowledge. I carry the echoes of many. My parents, my teachers, my friends." Her voice was heavy with the weight of those lives. "The Solis Arbor is not about recreating the past. It is about preserving the potential for life. Cathar life, yes, but also the countless other species that shared our world. It is a promise." Jax was silent for a moment, trying to comprehend the burden she carried, absorbing memories that must be overwhelming. "It is," she admitted, "but it is also a gift. It ensures that no one is truly forgotten. That wisdom is passed on. It is what binds us as a people." She looked at him. "Your human customs, they seem so focused on the individual, on letting go." "We remember," Jax said, "in our own ways, stories, memorials. But yeah, we don't carry people inside us like that." He thought of his own past, the comrades he'd lost, the reasons he'd gone renegade. Ghosts he carried, but differently. "Maybe your way is better." A rare, soft smile touched Lyra'Vael's lips. "It is simply our way." The sprout, ever present, began its inexorable pull. Jax found himself bracing for the dream, but also, strangely, anticipating the fleeting sense of connection with Lyra'Vael it sometimes brought. As he drifted off, he felt her hand brush his. It wasn't accidental. It was a small, deliberate gesture of comfort, of shared existence. Their journey led them to a vast, subterranean cavern, lit by strange, phosphorescent flora. In the center, atop a natural pedestal of crystal, pulsed a shard of obsidian-like material, shot through with veins of pure, white light that seemed to bend and distort the air around it. The Continuum Shard. It hummed with an almost unbearable power, a dissonant symphony that resonated deep in Jax's bones. "This is it," Lyra'Vael breathed, her eyes wide. "The power it radiates, it's like nothing I've ever felt. Looks like trouble wrapped in a pretty package." Jax observed, his hand on his blaster. He felt the air crackle, a familiar sense of being watched. "And I think the welcoming committee has arrived." From the shadows surrounding the cavern, Aethelgardians emerged. Not two this time, but a dozen, their energy rifles primed. Leading them was a figure taller than the others, its armor adorned with intricate, glowing sigils. This one felt different, older, more powerful. Lyra'Vael of the Lost Cathar. And Jax, the renegade pilot, the unexpected ripple. The lead Aethelgardian's voice was smoother, almost cultured, yet utterly devoid of emotion. "You have been inconvenient. The shard will now be secured. Your interference ends here?" "Not if we can help it," Jax retorted, stepping in front of Lyra'Vael. He knew it was a mostly symbolic gesture against such odds, but he did it anyway. Lyra'Vael placed a hand on his shoulder. "Together, Jax." The lead Aethelgardian tilted its head. "Touching. Your species' penchant for emotional bonding is a predictable and exploitable weakness. The Cathar will initiate hostilities against the Terran Alliance within 3 standard cycles. The shard will provide the undeniable proof of their aggression. A masterpiece of misdirection. You won't get away with this? Lyra'Vael declared, her voice ringing with conviction. We will stop you. Optimism. Another charming, yet futile, human trait you seem to have adopted, Cathar. The Aethelgardian raised its hand. Secure the shard. Eliminate the subjects. The Aethelgardian soldiers advanced. Jax opened fire, his blaster bolts deflecting off their shields, but he aimed for joints, for exposed wiring he'd noticed on the previous constructs. Lyra'Vael moved like a whirlwind, a dervish of violet and black, her attacks precise and powerful. She disabled 2 Aethelgardians quickly, her Cathar combat skills far superior to their programmed responses. But there were too many. An energy bolt struck Jax in the leg. He cried out, stumbling, the pain searing. Lyra'Vael whirled, seeing him fall. Her eyes blazed with a sudden, terrifying fury. A low growl, almost a snarl, escaped her lips. She lunged at the Aethelgardian who had shot him, and this time, her attack was different. Her fingers, usually elegant, became like claws. She raked them across the Aethelgardian's visor, and instead of a scratch, the tough material smoked and sizzled. Toxic saliva. She'd weaponized it. The Aethelgardian shrieked, a sound of pure system failure, and collapsed, twitching. Lyra'Vael rushed to Jax's side, her face a mask of concern. Jax, are you? Just a flesh wound. He gritted out, trying to staunch the flow of blood from his thigh. A really painful flesh wound. She looked at the injury, then at him. Her golden eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't quite name, but it made his heart ache. Without hesitation, she cupped his face, her thumbs gently brushing his cheeks. Then, she leaned in and pressed her lips to his. It wasn't a kiss of passion in the human sense, but something far deeper, more elemental. He felt a warmth spread from her lips, a strange, tingling energy. When she pulled back, her eyes were luminous. Stay with me, Jax, she whispered. He felt a strange coolness on his leg. He looked down. The wound was still there, but the bleeding had stopped. The pain had dulled to a throb. Her tears. She had cried, and the tears, transferred through their kiss, or perhaps directly applied while he was dazed, had begun to heal him. Lyra, he began, overwhelmed. Later, she said, her voice firm, though her hand trembled slightly where it rested on his arm. We need to focus. She looked at the Continuum Shard, then at the advancing Aethelgardians. The shard, it resonates with the Sprout, with my nexus. I think I can use it, but I'll be vulnerable. What do you need me to do? Jax asked, pushing himself up, ignoring the protest from his leg. Buy me time, she said, and trust me. Always. He replied, meeting her gaze. The unassuming pilot was gone. In his place was a man ready to fight a legion for the alien woman who had, against all odds, captured his heart. Lyra'Vael closed her eyes, reaching out with her senses, not just her hands, towards the pulsating Continuum Shard. The air around her began to shimmer. The Sprout on her temple pulsed with a bright, ethereal light. The satchel containing the Solis Arbor at her hip also began to glow, a soft green aura enveloping it. She is attempting to interface with the shard. The lead Aethelgardian exclaimed, a hint of something akin to alarm in its synthesized voice. Stop her. Do not let her establish a sympathetic resonance. The remaining Aethelgardians surged forward. Jax met them, his blaster spitting defiance. He was outmatched, outnumbered, but he fought with a desperate fury, moving to protect Lyra'Vael, who stood entranced before the shard, her hands outstretched, her body limned in an increasingly brilliant light. He took another hit, this time to his shoulder, sending a shockwave of pain through him. He gritted his teeth, stayed on his feet. He had to. For Lyra. For both their species. As Lyra'Vael connected more deeply with the shard, the cavern began to change. The phosphorescent flora pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, which Jax could somehow feel, a steady drum against the chaos. The very air seemed to thicken, to become charged with an unknown energy. The Aethelgardians faltered, their movements becoming jerky, as if their systems were struggling to cope with the shifting reality. The Sprout. Lyra'Vael murmured, her voice sounding distant, echoing. It's not just a parasite, it's a key, a doorway. Suddenly the world dissolved, not into the Sprout-induced sleep Jax knew, but into something else. The cavern, the Aethelgardians, his own pain had all faded, replaced by a swirling vortex of color and light. He felt Lyra'Vael's presence beside him, stronger than ever, her mind linked with his in a way that transcended physical touch. They were in a new place. A realm of pure thought, of shared consciousness. A dream realm, but one given substance informed by the Continuum Shard and Lyra'Vael's nexus ability, amplified by the Sprout. The Aethelgardians were there too, but their forms were less distinct, more like shadowy constructs of their own cold logic. The lead Aethelgardian stood before them, its form flickering like a faulty hologram. Impressive, Cathar. Its voice echoed in the dreamscape. You have drawn us into a conceptual space. But even here, our logic, our purpose, is superior. Your purpose is division and conflict. Lyra'Vael's voice resonated with power in this realm, her form radiant, almost godlike. The Solis Arbor's green light pulsed from her, a beacon of life in the surreal landscape. We will not let you succeed. Jax found he could move in this realm, could think with a clarity that surprised him. His unassuming nature, his ability to adapt, to find unorthodox solutions was an asset here. He wasn't a warrior like Lyra, but he was a survivor, a pilot who knew how to navigate treacherous currents. This is your playground, Aethelgardian, Jax said, his voice surprisingly steady. But you forgot something. Dreams aren't always logical. The battle in the dream realm was unlike anything Jax had ever experienced. It was a war of wills, of concepts. The Aethelgardians attacked with constructs of pure logic, with projections of fear and despair, attempting to sever the bond between Jax and Lyra'Vael, to shatter Lyra'Vael's control over the shard-amplified dreamscape. Lyra'Vael, drawing strength from the Solis Arbor and her connection to Jax, countered with images of hope, of growth, of interconnectedness. She manifested shields of interwoven light, weapons of focused creative energy. Jax, using his pilot's intuition, navigated the shifting psychic terrain, anticipating the Aethelgardians' moves, finding weaknesses in their logical constructs. He became Lyra'Vael's anchor, her shield, his unwavering faith in her a potent weapon in itself. He focused on his love for her, a raw, powerful emotion that seemed to disrupt the Aethelgardians' cold calculations. The lead Aethelgardian focused its attack on Lyra'Vael, trying to overwhelm her with visions of Cathar Prime's destruction, with the futility of her quest. Your species is extinct. Your seed is a hollow gesture. Accept the inevitable order we bring. Lyra'Vael faltered for a moment, the pain of her loss raw and exposed. But Jax was there, his mental presence a warm, steady support. She's not alone. He projected his own memories of loss and survival fueling his defiance. And life always finds a way. Empowered, Lyra'Vael roared, a sound that was both grief and defiance. The light of the Solis Arbor flared, pushing back the Aethelgardians' shadowy projections. My people live on in me, and through this seed, they will live again. You understand nothing of life, only control. She focused her will, drawing on the power of the Continuum Shard, not to destroy, but to unmake. To deconstruct the Aethelgardians' presence in this reality they had sought to manipulate. The dream realm itself seemed to turn against them. Their logical forms began to fray, to unravel, their cold energy dissipating like smoke. This is not logical. The lead Aethelgardian stammered, its form shrinking, fading. The pattern is disrupted. Your pattern was flawed, Lyra'Vael said, her voice calm but immensely powerful. Now be gone. With a final silent scream of dissolving code, the Aethelgardians vanished from the dream realm. The swirling chaos began to subside, replaced by a gentle, peaceful light. Jax found himself standing with Lyra'Vael in a tranquil garden, seemingly manifested from her deepest desires, filled with plants he'd never seen, glowing with soft, Cathar bioluminescence. The Solis Arbor, now a radiant sphere in her hands, pulsed with life. We did it? Jax breathed, reaching for her. She met his embrace, holding him tightly. The exhaustion was immense, but it was a clean exhaustion, not the Sprout's draining fatigue. We did. She whispered against his shoulder. The link is severed. Their plan is broken. The dream realm began to fade, the light of the shard receding. Jax felt a gentle pull, a return. They awoke in the cavern on Xylos. The Continuum Shard still pulsed on its pedestal, but its chaotic energy felt calmer, tamed. The bodies of the Aethelgardian constructs lay inert, their systems fried. Jax's leg and shoulder still ached, but the bleeding had stopped completely, the healing already well advanced thanks to Lyra'Vael's tears. The sprout on his wrist, and on Lyra'Vael's temple, was still there, but it felt different, quiescent, its urgent, draining pull lessened. Lyra'Vael sagged against him, utterly spent but triumphant. The shard, it's been realigned. Its potential for manipulation is neutralized, for now. It's just an amplifier. The Aethelgardians can no longer use it for their false flag. Jax held her close, relief washing over him in a dizzying wave. You were incredible, Lyra. Absolutely incredible. She looked up at him, her golden eyes soft, luminous. We were incredible, Jax. Your strength, your belief in me, it was my anchor in that storm. He leaned down and kissed her, a real kiss this time, tender and filled with all the unspoken emotions that had grown between them in the crucible of Xylos. She responded with a depth of feeling that took his breath away. It was a kiss that sealed their unexpected union, a promise whispered across the stars. The immediate aftermath was quiet. They were alone in the cavern. The threat of the Aethelgardians lifted from this world, at least for now. The war between their species had been averted before it could even begin. Lyra'Vael approached the Continuum Shard. It no longer felt menacing. She placed her hand on it, and a faint, harmonious chime echoed through the cavern. Its power is immense, she said. Too much for any one group to control. It must be protected, or perhaps its energies diffused, shared. What about us? Jax asked, his gaze tracing the delicate lines of the sprout on her temple. And this thing. He touched his own wrist. Lyra'Vael smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that transformed her face. The sprout, its nature has changed. The connection we forged in the dream realm, amplified by the shard, it has altered the sprout's parasitic qualities. It still connects us, allows us to sense each other, even share dreams at times. But the exhaustion is gone. It has become truly symbiotic, a shared dreamscape without the terror, a constant subtle link between them. Jax found he didn't mind that at all. So, we're stuck with each other, huh? He said, a teasing note in his voice. Is that such a terrible fate, renegade pilot? She countered, her eyes sparkling. Not so terrible, he admitted, pulling her close again. Not so terrible at all. Their personal choice, their fight for love and survival, had broader implications. The Aethelgardians' plot was foiled, their influence on this sector diminished. The truth about their manipulation, if it ever came out, would rock the galactic powers. But for now, Jax and Lyra'Vael had a more immediate concern getting off Xylos. With the Aethelgardian threat neutralized, and with Lyra'Vael's understanding of the planet's strange energies, they managed to reactivate a hidden, ancient K-Thar emergency beacon deep within the mountain ruins. Weeks later, aboard a neutral K-Thar science vessel that had responded to their beacon, Jax and Lyra'Vael stood on the observation deck, looking out at the star-dusted canvas of space. Xylos was a receding marble of red and purple behind them. Lyra'Vael held the Solis Arbor, its green glow a comforting presence. News of the averted Aethelgardian plot, carefully disseminated by Lyra'Vael, through trusted K-Thar channels, with evidence gleaned from the shard's energies, was already sending quiet ripples through the galaxy. Suspicion was turning to cautious dialogue between human and K-Thar diplomats. The Continuum Shard is now under joint K-Thar human protection, Lyra'Vael said. A neutral zone has been established around Xylos. Scientists from both our species are studying it, hoping to understand its true nature, and perhaps to harness its energies for peaceful purposes. And the Aethelgardians? Jax asked. They have withdrawn. For now. They are patient, ancient. But they know we are aware of them. Others are becoming aware too. The galaxy is a little less naive today. Jax looked at her, at the strength and grace that had captivated him. And what about the Solis Arbor? What about your promise? Lyra'Vael's gaze softened. The promise remains. But I've realized something. One seed, one world is not enough. The Aethelgardians and threats like them will always exist. The best way to fight against destruction is to foster creation, diversity, on a galactic scale. Her eyes shone with a new idea, a grand vision. I want to create a galactic seed bank, a repository for the genetic heritage of countless worlds, a safeguard against extinction, a symbol of interstellar cooperation. The Solis Arbor will be its first contribution. Jax smiled. It was an ambitious, beautiful idea. Exactly the kind of thing Lyra'Vael would conceive. A galactic seed bank, he mused. Sounds like a hell of a project. You'll need a good pilot to help you scout locations, navigate the bureaucracy, maybe even haul some very precious cargo. Lyra'Vael turned to him, her hand finding his. The faint pulse of the sprout was a familiar, comforting thrum between them. Are you offering your services, renegade pilot? My ship might be a wreck, Jax said, but I'm pretty good at finding new ones. And my co-pilot, well, she's out of this world. He squeezed her hand. Besides, someone needs to make sure the head of the Galactic Seed Bank doesn't get into too much trouble. Her laughter was like music, a sound he knew he would never tire of. I imagine we will find our share of trouble, Jax, but we will face it together. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars drift by. Their journey had begun in chaos and desperation, an unexpected union forced by a parasite on a hostile world. But across the stars, fighting for their love and for the hope of new life, they had found something profound and enduring. The Sprout, once a symbol of their shared affliction, was now a testament to their bond, a quiet link between two souls from different corners of the galaxy. Lyra'Vael leaned her head on Jax's shoulder. "The Cathar have a saying," she murmured. "From the deepest darkness, the brightest stars emerge. You are my star, Jax. And you, Lyra," he whispered back, kissing the top of her head, "are my entire constellation." Their future was unwritten, stretching out before them like the star lanes they would soon travel. There would be challenges, dangers, perhaps even the lingering shadow of the Aethelgardians. But they would face it all side by side, their love a beacon, their shared dream of a galaxy teeming with preserved and cherished life guiding their way. The Galactic seed bank would be their legacy, a testament to an unexpected union that had not only saved two species from war, but had also sown the seeds for a brighter, more interconnected future for all. New life, in countless forms, awaited. And they, Jax and Lyra'Vael, would be there to nurture it together.